Michael, what's today's audio?
Today we're talking about Linkplay's WiiM amp. I compared it to the Luxman L-505Z.
How did you like the WiiM amp?
As it turns out, it's okay. If you don't want a lot of detail in your audio, the WiiM amp should be fine.
I see, and Master would like to hear a comparison between Linkplay's WiiM amp and Luxman's L-505Z, wouldn't you?
Yes, I want to hear it.
What equipment are you using?
The sound source is Amazon Music, the network streamer is Linkplay's WiiM Ultra, and the speakers are KEF's R3 Meta. I used RCA analog cables to output from the WiiM Ultra and compared the amp with Linkplay's WiiM amp and Luxman's L-505Z.
What is the price?
The WiiM amp is $299 and the L-505Z is $5,995.
That's quite a price difference.
Normally, we wouldn't compare the two, but I like to try out different types of audio equipment. I stacked the two units on top of each other, and they are quite different in size. The WiiM amp can be easily held in one hand, and the L-505Z is a full-fledged audio size. Let's start with the front panel of the WiiM amp. The chassis is made of aluminum, giving it a high-end feel. As an audio device's appearance, the WiiM amp has reached a standard level. For example, the WiiM Pro Plus is made of plastic, and its texture is very dull. There are no switches, just the volume. There are only status LEDs to indicate the status and volume level. This is a very simple design. It is surprisingly easy to understand that the volume level is indicated by the number of LEDs instead of a numerical value. You can check the exact volume value on your phone. The actual operation is basically done with the smartphone, not the unit. It should be noted that you need to be connected to Wi-Fi to operate it.
Can the WiiM amp be operated without Wi-Fi?
Probably not. I use a separate network streamer, so I did not need a network connection for the WiiM amp. But since I use my phone to control it, the WiiM amp also needed to be connected to the network. The rear panel looks like this. As introduced in the previous issue, it is equipped with a set of terminals. The quality of the speaker terminals and RCA terminals is not bad. The speaker terminals are compatible with banana plugs. I am also glad that I can use a USB memory stick. The manual is very simple, but once you connect the device and have the app, WiiM Home, recognize the WiiM amp, it's easy to use.
What are the differences between the WiiM amp and the L-505Z?
The main difference is that the WiiM amp supports network playback, which allows streaming music if you have the WiiM amp and speakers. The L-505Z is a classic integrated amplifier, so it requires a CD player, network streamer, and other devices in addition to speakers.
How was the sound quality?
Since there is a significant price difference, I was worried about how well the WiiM amp would do. My first impression was not bad. I thought the range was a little narrow compared to the L-505Z, but I thought the WiiM amp would be fine.
The WiiM amp is quite good.
I thought so. When I listened to the speakers face-to-face, there was quite a difference from the L-505Z. The overall balance of the soundstage is narrow. If I were to use an analogy, the WiiM amp is 2D and the L-505Z is like 3D. To put a finer point on it, the low-frequency range is not well controlled. It would be better to say that the low-frequency range is loose. In other words, the vibration of the woofer is not controlled.
That makes the music uncomfortable to listen to, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Well-controlled bass is pleasant. I think it is a very important part of audio.
Is the output of the WiiM amp okay?
According to the specs, the WiiM amp is rated at 120 watts into 4 ohms of speaker impedance. The L-505Z is rated at 150 watts, but 120 watts should be sufficient.
So the cause of the low frequency looseness is not the output power.
I think it is the damping factor. It is not disclosed in the WiiM amp. The L-505Z has a damping factor of 200. The formula for the damping factor is speaker impedance divided by amplifier output impedance. Since the speakers are the same, the output impedance of the WiiM amp may be higher than that of the L-505Z.
Damping factor is very important, isn't it?
Another difference between Class D and Class AB amplifiers may be significant. The WiiM amp, a Class D amplifier, is characterized by its high efficiency. It can produce an output that is unimaginable for its size. However, one of the drawbacks of Class D amplifiers is the noise caused by switching. Another is the effect of the low-pass filter. Class D amplifiers use a low-pass filter to convert the switching signal into an analog signal. If the filter's characteristics are inadequate, the fine information in the low-frequency range may be lost. In addition, the WiiM amp has low resolution in the high-frequency range. Compared to the L-505Z, the number of notes in the high-frequency range is clearly lower.
Is that because it is a Class D amplifier?
Probably so.
Aren't the recent Class D amplifiers different from the early products, and haven't they overcome the shortcomings?
I guess that depends on the product. The switching power module of the WiiM amp uses a product called TPA-3255 from Texas Instruments. The TPA-3255 is low-priced and may have some switching shortcomings when compared to higher-end switching power modules.
As for Michael, is the WiiM amp a no-no?
Considering the price of $299, I think it is doing very well. The low and high frequencies are weak and the dynamic range is narrow, but the mid-range is not bad. For listening to music, the WiiM amp is fine. However, it is hard to compare with L-505Z. However, the WiiM amp has a higher-end device, the WiiM Amp Pro. The WiiM amp has a signal-to-noise ratio of 98 dB, while the WiiM Amp Pro has 120 dB. THD plus N is 0.0025% for the WiiM amp and 0.0005% for the WiiM Amp Pro.
So WiiM Amp Pro is superior?
There is a big difference in both values. The WiiM Amp Pro might be a good match for the L-505Z. Even with the increased performance, the price of the WiiM Amp Pro is $379, which is 1/15 of the L-505Z.
The WiiM Amp Pro is only about $80 more than the WiiM amp, right? Why the big difference in specs?
I don't know about that. The power amp module is the same, the TPA-3255.
Did they do some kind of magic?
According to my research, the WiiM Amp Pro has an additional PFFB, post-filter feedback, circuit in the power amp module. This seems to have greatly improved the signal-to-noise ratio and THD plus N compared to the WiiM amp.
What is the PFFB circuit?
The PFFB circuit is a technique used in Class D amplifiers to obtain a feedback signal from a low-pass filter, output filter, placed after the output stage of the amplifier. Inexpensive Class D amplifiers generally use pre-filter feedback, in which the feedback signal is obtained before the low-pass filter. In contrast, post-filter feedback has the following characteristics. Feedback is taken from after the low-pass filter, just before the speaker, and the actual output signal, including the output filter, is incorporated into the feedback loop. The speaker and impedance variations are reflected in the feedback control, so we get a more accurate output signal. The downside is that it costs more, but I guess PFFB contributes to better sound quality.
It's hard to understand in words, so I'll have to try the WiiM Amp Pro in person.
Yes, that's true. I'm going to wait and see how the WiiM Amp Pro works out. For now, I compared Linkplay's WiiM Amp and Luxman's L-505Z. The difference in price shows the difference in detail, but if you don't care about the details, the WiiM Amp is not bad.
I see, so the WiiM Amp is fine if you don't care about the details. Master, do you want a WiiM Amp too?
Subtle.